So let's dig in. I am going to let you kind of go first because, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Send out the link. It's been a little bit of a double link because I had it scheduled, but I had to redo it. And so I'm glad you guys are here with Tiff and I for our Friday, Fired Up Friday. And we, of course, have a lot to talk about. I'm going to let Tip kind of dive in and give an overview of the situation with the DNC vice chair elections.
Oh boy. All right, Ms. D. Well, it's Friday. We made it through a crazy week. So,
Yes.
as usual, let's hope that Dallas. Last time she fell asleep during this. Let's hope that she behaves this time because
And if she doesn't, that's okay.
yeah,
Dallas is part of the family. We know Dallas.
she definitely is part of the family. Everybody knows. Everybody knows Dallas, but she needs to be a good girl. So, okay, let's talk about the DNC. So the whole David Hogg debacle. So Monday there was a hearing. So there's two different things that are going on. So let's start there because there's two different things that are happening with David Hogg.
Right. And a lot of people don't really understand it.
They really don't understand it. And believe me, it's even complicated for me to understand it. And I follow this. So, how it starts is February 1st, there was an election. The election for all of the officers of the DNC. So, you have the the chair, which is Ken Martin, was elected. You have vice chairs. Now, people, I don't know if you realize this, but there are multiple vice chairs of the DNC. So there is a vice chair that is specific to like engagement, and so that is on a specific line. Then and they had a specific ballot for that, and Raina won that. Then there was, and this is the last vote of this day. So this is 9 hours that they are at the DNC committee meeting on a Saturday, and it's
And when was this done? It
this
was
was February 1st,
right.
the
Okay.
Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, February 1st. So they have this vote, and this is the last vote of the night. And now they need to pick three people to be the DNC vice chairs. They call this the DNC at large chairs. So the first vote that they take, mind you, there's about 16 or so candidates running for this race. This is not like an easy thing because there's a lot of candidates. So the votes were taking a really long time. So the first vote they did was with everyone that was running for vice chair, right? Most people did not meet the threshold. You needed a certain amount to win. I think you needed over like 250 to win
Mm-hmm.
that round. So what ended up happening is Artie. So three people made it to the top. It was Malcolm, David, and Artie. A lot of people started dropping out after that, and they started endorsing other candidates, which made sense because obviously if you didn't get the votes, then why stay in the race, right? So
Right.
they consolidated that down. Then the next vote, Artie won outright. She had the most votes. It was not even close. She beat everybody. So she's a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and she won. But now, because there's now a woman who's vice chair for the engagement, which is Raina. Now there's Artie, which is another woman, and Jane Klebb also won. She's like the vice chair for like state. Well, she's not the vice chair, but it's part of this whole like gender rules thing.
Mm-hmm.
So she's part of that. So now there's three women basically in this leadership. So they have to pick a man. Like these are the gender rules that are required in the DNC bylaws. So they say, okay, well, this round it's gonna be you have to pick a man and you have to pick someone of any gender. Okay. Which is very confusing because one, there's two men and there's three women that are going to be on this ballot because five people qualified for this next round. But the problem is because there was two men and one is required, people weren't sure how to vote for this. So they kind of like tallied all the votes up. People voted for David Hogg, people voted for Malcolm Kenyatta, people voted for the three women. But in reality, people were technically voting for the men were able to get two slots where the women were only eligible for one slot. So that put the women at a disadvantage because their votes only counted towards that all gender bucket, but Malcolm and David Hogg counted towards both. What should have happened and what they discussed on Monday is that there should have been a line. So they should have said, okay, this is the line, pick one of the two men. And then on the next line, it'll be all five of the people, and you can pick from one of those. Now, David Hogg may have still won on that second line that's all gender, or Malcolm could have won. They could have won either way. But what happened was Malcolm ended up winning. He got like 289 votes, and then David Hogg got 214. So the women again were disadvantaged because of this, and that caused some concern. Now, Kaylin Free, who was one of the people on the ballot, she then sends a letter. She did a whole bunch of investigation, like on the rules and everything that was going on with this vote. And she's a lawyer. She used to be a prosecutor. She knows her stuff.
She knows the law.
Let's be real.
Yes.
And she filed a claim. I mean, she wrote a letter, filed a claim, and said, we were disadvantaged. This is what your rules say. You violated the rules, and then that was taken. That had to be taken up. According to Malcolm, there was 30 days that the DNC had to respond to that letter. So that letter is filed on 2/28. All right. Mm-hmm. So they have 30 days to review. They respond back and they say on April 12th. Hold on, I'm trying to think of the days. So it's April 20. I had it in my video. I think it's like April 27th. Mm-hmm. They respond. So there's like a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. David Hogg, Malcolm, they all are told about what is going on with this situation. That she filed a claim and this was going to probably come up to a hearing. Anyways, they scheduled the hearing in April, and they scheduled it for May 12th, which was Monday. Now, in the midst of all of this, of course, David Hogg comes out in April, like around mid-April, and he says that he is going to primary House members who he feels are ineffective. He doesn't say his criteria. He just says this is what he's going to do. It makes no sense to anyone who understands how any of this works, because why are you spending $20 million supposedly to primary people in blue seats? No one's asking for that. I mean, in some cases there may be, but whatever. People were up in arms about that, rightfully so, because they're like, we should be spending money on beating Republicans. That's what makes sense. We have to beat Republicans to get the House back, not blue seats. So he does that. And then Ken Martin, in the middle of all of this, between February 28th and May 12th, Ken Martin, who's the chair of the DNC, says, well, listen, David, you can do this, but you can't be a vice chair at the same time as doing this, because we need to have neutrality. We are the officers of the DNC. We should not be involved in any primaries.
It makes sense. Yeah.
And David doesn't like that. In all his entitlement, he does not like what Ken has to say. And so Ken issues an op-ed, tells what he feels, and he says, we are going to have a vote in August, and I'm putting out a resolution. He has a whole reform package of things he wants to do and make changes in the DNC. It makes sense. Just think about it as this. If you have turnover in your job, you get a new boss, right? He's the new boss of the DNC. They're going to come in and they're going to have new rules that your old boss did not have. And you're going to either have to comply or you're going to have to quit. If you don't like the rules, you're going to have to quit. So this is no different than being in corporate America. But this is an organization, and David was elected. But Ken said, I'm changing the rules because this is what we do in my state. This has worked in Minnesota. He used to be the Minnesota chairman of the Minnesota Democratic Party. And this is what I want to do. So he did it. And everybody else signed on to the neutrality pledge but David Hogg. And then he came out. This was apparently in March, and then he came out with his PAC stuff in April. So of course, when this whole thing happens on Monday and they have the hearing and they decide that they are going to do a redo because yes, 3 women were disadvantaged, David gets all up in arms because he's like y'all are trying to attack me, and he writes this whole scathing thing about they're just trying to get me out and he's the victim. But the truth of the matter is David is not the only person impacted. One, there were 3 women of color that were impacted. Caitlin Free is Native American. Jenna Repass is is a black woman, and the other woman, Shasti Conrad, is Indian American. And of course, Malcolm Kenyatta was also elected. He got the most votes, and he's a black man. But David decides that he is the victim of this all. But again, 3 women were disadvantaged. A black man now has to run. But David, the young white guy, is the disadvantaged one. And so that has pissed Malcolm off because Malcolm is like, dude, I got the most votes.
I'm
And
not out here whining and
yeah, and I'm
crying.
not whining. I've been busting my ass for 100 days that I've been in this role. I've been going to do town halls. I've been doing all this stuff, and the only thing that I see you doing is going on TV talking about your PAC. And let's be clear about David's PAC. He gets paid from his PAC. He gets paid about $10,000 a month from his PAC. So he is using his PAC and while he's the DNC vice chair, to go on TV and basically get donations. David Hogg in 2023 and 2024, he only raised $11.9 million. So he is saying that he's going to give $20 million to all these people, but David Hogg only has $1.2 million in the bank. So what he's trying to do, let's be real, is trying to elicit donations for what he wants to do. And now there's a lot of people that say, well, we don't want these ineffective people in the Congress. You know, they're equating ineffective with old, which I don't think is fair. There's plenty of older
There's
people in
nuance.
Congress
Yes.
who are effective. My congressman is 85 years old and he is effective. There are people who are not effective, and it doesn't have to do anything with age. There are young people in Congress who don't do jack shit.
Mm-hmm.
So he has not given out his criteria of what he wants to do. But I have done some investigation because you know how I do.
Yes.
And he had already started giving money to open seats. So the first candidate that he decided that he was going to support is in the Texas 18 special election. This is the seat that Sylvester Turner, he passed away, I think it was in February, and there's supposed to be a special election in November because of Greg Abbott, slow ass. And he delayed it as long as he possibly could. So
Right.
there's multiple candidates running it. Most people know Isaiah Martin. He's a friend of ours. He's
Mm-hmm.
running that race. There's the person that David is backing is Christian Menifee, and he gave him $3,500. So now what it looks like is that David is playing favorites. He's paying using his money from his PAC to play favorites in races. What I found interesting about this though is I don't believe David has like a mind of his own. So this is just me. That day when he gave the money to Christian Menifee, Beto endorsed Christian.
Mm.
So so he went from I don't even think he knows anything about the seat or what it even is about or who this district at all. But he gave him money. So Beto endorses, he gives him money. He has never announced that he's endorsing this person, but clearly he gave him money, so he's endorsing. Then yesterday,
This is David you're talking about.
yeah,
Like Beto endorses and then David gave
with
the
his
money.
PAC, yeah, Leaders We Deserve is the name of the PAC. They give money to Christian. So it's kind of like you see the pattern. Then
Mm-hmm.
yesterday there is an open seat in Illinois 02, which was Robin Kelly's seat, and she's running for Senate. So there's a bunch of candidates that are starting to run. Bernie endorses this guy named Robert Peters on Wednesday. On Thursday, David comes out and says he's endorsing him. So this is like, I'm like, did you do any homework on these candidates? Because you are just endorsing based on what other people are endorsing. Like I see patterns, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the whole David Hogg debacle. That's what I call it. It's a drama and it's unnecessary. But now what we have to deal with is a new vote. Who's going to be the vice chairs going forward? So you have all the five candidates that were on the original ballot have to be, they have to do a new election, basically. There's no date for when that's going to be, but the two vice chairs, Malcolm and David, can stay in their seats until they have this vote.
Right.
No one was kicked out. No one was fired. You can't be fired. There has to be a vote to fire you. So a lot of people are like, well, why doesn't Ken Martin fire David Hogg? He cannot fire him because the way the rules work, you have to be voted out. 2/3 of vote needed to vote someone out of the role. My thing is, if David doesn't like the rules, then he should quit.
Yeah.
It's not, you can go run your pack. Like, I don't care if, oh, listen, if you want to use your pack to primary people, have at it. There, you are not the only one. You are not the innovator of this. There has been people who have done this before. Brand new Congress, Justice Democrats. That was their mission. Their mission before was to get older people, people who they think are fossils, whatever word they want to use, dinosaurs. They're like, they just got to go, right? So they have done this. 95% of the candidates that they put up, they lost. The people that won were AOC, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush. These are the people that won those races.
And the only one that still remains.
And the only one that still remains is AOC.
Mm-hmm.
And she's in a very blue district in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the other two got obviously kicked out of Congress last year. So you want to go do this, be my guest. Go and primary everyone to your heart's desire and give them whatever money you can conjure up, you give them. But you cannot do that as a DNC officer. You should be neutral. Period.
Yeah. I mean, and that just to me is just kind of common sense because it's like the DNC is putting their finger on the scale by him doing what he's doing and being an officer in the DNC. That is like them saying, the DNC saying, this is our candidate, and we haven't had a primary yet.
Yeah,
So,
and he keeps saying, well, there was Simone Sanders got him good because he keeps saying, well, there was other vice chairs who had done this, and he never names names. He said then he said on the show like Gretchen Whitmer and I think some I forgot the other person. Oh, Tammy Baldwin. And of course, Simone understands the DNC, and she's like, that's not what they did with their pack. Like you're doing something that has never been done as part of your pack and part of your vice chair. First of all, no one even think think of this. Do you even most people don't even know, and I didn't even know who the vice chairs were. I didn't know who Ken Martin was. He was the vice chair last cycle. I didn't know who he was. I
right,
People do not, people that are Democrats do not pay attention to things like that. They just they're the average Democrat. What they do is they pay attention to their home base, their local races, their state races, the presidency, obviously, but they're not worried about who's the DNC chair or who's the DNC vice chairs, secretaries, none of that. That is not what the average person who's a Democrat does. Most people that are Democrats don't even have any affiliation with the party other than being registered as a Democrat.
right.
It
and
just,
and yeah, I just feel like he's causing a lot of controversy around something that should not be controversial, and because there are rules and regulations and things in place, and I think that speaks to him, his character, that he's willing to bend the rules or like forget about the rules when it comes to something that he wants to do. So I don't see that being a good leadership example as one. And to do this at a time when, yes, it is important that we take back the house, that we fight against this fascist regime that is in power now. And to bring all of this controversy in when we should be coalescing and becoming stronger is very divisive and very dangerous. And it really, that's the sickening part to me. And of course, the media is loving this. They are jumping on top of it and going with it. And so now you have the David Hogg thing going on. And then you have this crazy ass book coming
oh
out
my God. Yeah,
about President
distraction.
Biden.
It's nothing but distractions because the David Hogg thing, I mean, he goes on Bill Maher and he's like talking about people. oh, we need to work. We need young people want to get laid and they want to have fun. Yeah, guess what? So do old people. We want to get laid and have fun too. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why that's something that's supposed to be like. We're not. The Democrats are not here to solve your personal problems. Like if you can't get laid, that's not the Democrats' problem, buddy. That's
Right.
your own problem. So the whole thing is just silly, but that's what the media feeds off of. I have posted, what the media is saying about this because they will pick, especially right wing media. They're like David Hogg, all he wants to do is have fun and get laid. Like this is the stuff that they pick up on because it makes Democrats look silly.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, we should be talking, like you said, about what's really going on. Trump getting a plane from the Qataris or
I
this
mean, the
bill.
grifters are us regime is just the grift is off the chart. I mean, the plane is just like one thing. I mean, all of the money again, um, same as he did in his last term. The first um, trip he makes abroad, not to an ally, but to a very problematic, I mean, country, but one that is feeding his family a lot of money.
Exactly.
Okay. And the plane really, like he would be a sucker even to take it. Forget about it being, against the emoluments clause and all of those things. But it's like they're giving him, their secondhand stuff that they don't want to use. Like literally, they don't want this thing and they don't want the responsibility for continuing to take care of it,
Right.
So they're going to dump it on Trump because he's gullible. Like I was reading an article, I can't even remember what publication it was in, but it was like most of these royal families and stuff are not using those big planes and things anymore because I read it costs $23,000 an hour to
Mhm.
fly them. It's
Yep.
like people buying Hummers, where everybody had these Hummers and things and riding around, and it turns out they're just not really that economical.
Well, the thing is, he goes there. I just feel like a lot of this stuff, like to be honest, like a lot of it is such projection. All the things that they accuse Biden of doing and his son, they are out there doing. Like they have all these deals with Saudi Arabia, his kids, with the Trump business. They are, they hammered. I mean, they had hearings over Hunter Biden and his connections with the Ukrainians and the Chinese. And I mean, there's like this whole investigation that they were doing an oversight. Meanwhile, the Trump kids are using Trump's business to make a profit. I mean, and using his presidency as a way to get him over there so they can make deals. Like it's so jacked up and it's so frustrating because there's really nothing that we can do about it. The plane is like one of so many things that were wrong on that trip. And it's disgusting to watch it because what can we as Americans really do to stop it? Nothing. The Democrats really don't have any authority or power to stop what he's doing. And we're just watching corruption right out in the open, and they don't even care.
Right, because it's almost as if they're saying we're doing it in the open. It has to be, it has to
Right.
be okay. Just because we're committing crimes in your faces, then it's not a crime.
Exactly. And that's the to me that is the worst part of this. Meanwhile, Congress is trying to take people's Medicare and Medicaid and whatever they're doing with this bill. Thankfully, it like got killed in the Republicans actually killed it in committee today, which is even more hilarious because it's hold on one second. Because hold on, what are we even doing here? Like these people are getting pushback. I mean, even Josh Hawley of all people, Josh Hawley, who I will never agree with mostly anything on in life, even he was on TV and I was like, oh my God, I actually agree with him. Because he's
Right.
like, we cannot cut Medicaid. And if they're gonna cut Medicaid, I'm not voting for this bill. And I'm like, listen, it's gonna take Republicans to stop this. The Democrats cannot stop this bill. We don't have
Right.
the numbers.
Exactly. And the funny thing is like you said, Josh Hawley was against it, but his other representative there, I can't think of his name, he was doing a Fox interview and he kind of let it slip that, yeah, Medicaid cuts. And then he had to back up and he rephrased it as Medicaid reforms, like, yeah,
Yeah, well,
you're trying to cut Medicaid.
yeah, because his point was you're changing the eligibility of the people who can get the benefit. You can say all day you're not cutting, but if you're cutting the eligibility, then technically you are cutting the benefits off. And that is not okay. Then you have the other folks that the reason that the people in the budget committee did not go forward with this is not because they care about the Medicare cuts. The reason they cut it off, they didn't pass it, is because they want more cuts. Like, this is crazy. Then you have the people in the Senate who know that if they pass this, they're gonna be in big trouble in their states. I mean, this is a lot, talking about a lot of money. And in my state, they said if this passes, that's like $1 billion that we have to come up with to fund Medicaid. Like, this is
Here
not
in
gonna work.
Tennessee, it's 1.9 billion, like, and
Yeah, how do you make up? States don't have money like that to make up for the money. I mean, like, we get a lot of money in Maryland from the federal government. We're not California, who's giving more money, and I'm sure Tennessee is kind of the same, but they rely on the federal government to be able to fund a lot of these programs, Medicaid especially in my state. And now you're how do you tell people that they're not going to have benefits to be able to go to the doctor? I mean, that is a hard sell, but they don't care about the blue states. But I'm concerned about the people in the red states, because the blue states will find a way to make it work. They always do. But the red states, these people are not gonna have anything. And what are they gonna do then? I mean,
yeah, I
and
mean,
and my favorite part is that they're like, well, they're putting these work requirements on, and they're like, what about the 30-year-old that's home all day and they're just sitting at home watching TV? Don't you think that they should have to go to work? And I'm like, the people that are doing that are your supporters, bro.
exactly, exactly. And the thing of it is like in my state, what happens when they do this is it also causes rural hospitals to close. We've already had a lot that closed because we didn't expand the
The AC.
ACA. Yeah, when that came out. So we have what here Medicaid is called TennCare, and they already have a lot of crazy work requirements around folks getting snaps and other things, and then they have these ways and methods of preventing people from doing it just by the process, making it so difficult that people just kind of give up, and they don't care. And also in my state, like they're trying to do at the federal level, they have given lots of corporations these tax breaks so that, we have like an Amazon headquarters here, FedEx, and others, and like only 20% of the largest companies operating here pay any taxes. Any
Oh, wow.
taxes. Yes. Um, so it's not, we are going to, we're already we're struggling, but it's going to get much worse because they just keep doing things that make it harder. Like they're not improving opportunities for us to bring in revenue to the states because even, our tourist tax base has been depleted because of some of the laws and things that they have put in place. And now, of course, it's been making national news, but they've had a lot of raids, like in
I saw
places.
that.
Yes, on Broadway last weekend, they were literally going in ice raids in bars on Broadways, which is a tourist, now mainly tourists. Locals don't really hang out there that much. And Kid Rock, big Trump supporter, has a restaurant and a bar down there, and his closed. And another one of his and a friend, they literally told their undocumented workers to leave like at 9:30 at night. And so when people were in the establishments that were open, they couldn't order food and do certain things because they didn't have the staff there. So it's like they continue to cut off their nose to spite their face. I don't get it, you know.
Yeah, no, there is definitely not making much sense what they're doing, but it seems like they've, in a way, they like they're having these raids, but they're also thankfully for the courts, they're not sending people to El Salvador, or they're not. So I think that is kind of like calm the waters a little bit, because the courts have kind of kiboshed some of these like extreme things that they were doing in the beginning. But they'll be back. It'll be back. It's not gonna stop, and they're still gonna do raids, and they just can't send. They're locking people up. I mean, Raz Baraka, the mayor of Newark, what was that, last week when he was like locked up? I mean, these are the crazy things that are happening. Yet they want to jail. They want to prosecute Jim Comey for saying 86-47. I mean, come on, this is getting out of control.
It really is, and I mean, and this is the problem I have with um, David Hogg and these people writing these books about the election and Biden, who is no longer in office, and um, you're doing all of this, and we are literally in the middle of a fascist takeover. Like, really, where are your priorities? And the fact that you are still able to do this could be in jeopardy, you know, in a few months,
Yeah.
you know. So it's like so stupid and ridiculous. And as far as the ICE raids, they may not be sending them to El Salvador, but they are still, because they really just kind of ramped them up here in Tennessee. And what they're doing is, because they have this program called like 287G, and it's like, you know, where cities, municipalities um, basically make an agreement with ICE to help them.
Right.
And I'm in Nashville. It's a blue city. You know, we have a Democratic mayor and largely Democratic city council. And so they didn't sign, you know, a 287G contract with ICE, but some of these other surrounding cities did. So they're locking up, they're first of all using bogus traffic stops to get people. And then they are not holding them here, they are shipping them to Knox County. And then they are detained there in their local jail. And then they are shipping them off
To
to
different states.
Louisiana.
Right. I
So,
know I know that some of them were sent to, like, people here in Maryland. They send them to like this holding facility in Baltimore, which is a disaster. They've had so many violations. Then they're sending them to Texas, but that's where Kilmer Abrego or Garcia went. He went to Texas. I know some people have gone to New Jersey, so they're moving them all around. The sad part is, some of these people, I was watching the hearing the other day with Christy Nome, the dog killer, and,
yes.
and Robert Garcia was saying, you have the guy, I forgot his name. He's the makeup artist, the gay makeup artist. You
Hmm.
have him. These people don't families don't know where their loved ones are. You literally have locked them up in a hole. It's one thing if they're in America and you know where they are. But imagine just not knowing where your son or your daughter is, and you know that they're in some max facility where their people are literally tortured, and you haven't spoke to your child since February or March. Like, that is insane. And this woman is like, well, maybe, I don't know, like, maybe we can try. But then she was like, no, we're not gonna try. Then she was like, okay, maybe I'll see what I could do.
Right.
But
Because he was asking for like proof of life,
yeah,
something.
like, can you just let us know that he's okay? Like, make a phone call, like something. It's really cruel. It's cruelty for real, and it's just exhausting. And then you have to listen to then you see. I don't even watch CNN, right? I don't think most of us do, because it's just
Trash.
chaotic, and it just feels like they're like Fox Jr. at this point.
Hmm.
But we all know that Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson have this book that is coming out. Original Sin is what it's called, and hope it goes, like, as we say in New York, double wood. It's just a flop, that it doesn't do anything and doesn't even make it to the New York Times bestseller list, because The book is absurd at this point. The things that they release, I'm like, this is your proof that Biden was in cognitive decline, that he fell and he possibly needed a wheelchair. I mean, this is the best that you have from this book, that he didn't recognize George Clooney and he hadn't seen. The thing is, I feel like a lot of people are not recognizing what was happening.
Yes, Annalee, they're full of it.
They are definitely full of it. But the George Clooney thing is interesting to me because people forget that Biden had just come from, it was either G7 or G20. He had just come back that night. He
Hmm.
flew in from Europe to California for that event. So he was on, like, maybe he was gone for a week and it was maybe, I don't know, maybe they said he had like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And he comes into the event and he sees George Clooney, who he supposedly knows for like 15 years, and he doesn't recognize him. And that's their proof that he is cognitively declined. I'm
Right.
like, hold on. I'm sorry, but I've seen George Clooney lately, and he doesn't look like the George Clooney that I used to know, which was handsome. He looks a mess, especially with that hair. I mean, the picture that he has with Biden, he looks fine, but I just don't understand why that was the thing that they released as though that was something
A
revelatory.
smoking gun.
Because we already knew that from George Clooney's letter that he wrote back in July. That was not a secret. George Clooney wrote that in the damn op-ed that he posted. I call it a letter, but it was like a dear voter letter. Get rid of Biden. That's what it was. But we already knew that he said that. So why is that some kind of revelation? And then there's other stuff that's come out about the cabinet secretary. One cabinet secretary said that Biden definitely didn't have dementia, but they were keeping him in a bubble. And when I think about why they put Biden in a bubble, I say to myself, what was happening during that time? There was lots happening. If we go backwards in time, you start to realize kind of how we got to this point. So I went through it in my brain while I was like trying to get ready, and I'm like, okay, and there, listen, people have valid arguments. Okay, maybe Biden should have dropped out the race. He shouldn't, well, not dropped out, but he maybe shouldn't have ran for president again, right? He should have just left it at one term, let it go, and then we had a primary. I understand why people feel that way, but I don't think that they are thinking back to how things were in 2023 and 22 when Biden made that decision. Biden had already said in 2021 that he was going to, like, basically run for reelection. I mean, he had already decided in his mind that he was going to run for reelection. And that's exactly what he did. But before Biden ran for reelection, there was something that happened before that. Like when he made it official, Trump decided he was going to run for reelection. And that was as a result, like days later, after he was indicted in November of 2020, 2022. So Biden already had in his mind when he decided he was definitely going to run that he was going to face Trump again. I think if Biden was going to go against someone who was younger, he might have said, "You know what? I'm stepping away from this." Trump has tortured this man and he wanted a rematch with this man.
Right. And as he said, he was the only one who has beat him, you know?
Exactly. And so that's what he decided to do. But I think there was also how Biden was in 2023, in April 2023, is maybe not the same person that I'm not the same person that I was in April of 2023. So
Presidenting is hard. It's a difficult
it's,
job when you
yeah,
actually do it. Look at what happened to Obama's hair. You know?
Obama left there looking old as I don't know what. Poor Obama. He went in there looking cute and fine and young, and he walked out of there old man. But it is a very taxing job. It's
Yeah.
stressful. And then you also have, so April 2023, Biden decide, we have the midterms, and Biden, Trump jumps in the race. We didn't think, I mean, honestly, there was supposed to be a red wave. That never really happened. So that gave Biden confidence that what he was doing was working. But you also have to remember that the Republicans took over the House in 2023. And that changed the game because Biden no longer could pass any kind of legislation. There was nothing that was being done in the Congress. So he had no real true wins. Everything that he was talking about as far as wins were things that happened in 2021 and in early 2022. There was no activity happening in Congress. Congress was useless in 2023. So Biden doesn't have a lot of wins to go off of. People are starting to get frustrated because what is Biden doing? He's not canceling the student loan people. He's not canceling my student loan. He's trying to do. These people are complaining because he's not getting things done. He has to do executive orders. He's not in the same position as he was with having a trifecta. We have to acknowledge that. So he jumps in the race in April 2023, and then things start happening. What happens? His son is getting hammered.
Dragged through Congress and
He is
and
getting
and
dragged, that is in the summer of 2023. He is Hunter Biden is being like he's definitely being dragged through the mud. He has to start now, being prepared to have a special counsel investigate him. His case like kind of falls apart that he has with his plea deal. This is I can you first of all, if it was just a parent, you would be stressed. But now your son is in this position because you are the president. It's not because he's Hunter Biden. It's because his last name is Biden and you are the president. So they're dragging him through the mud with this whole thing. And now Biden's doing. Then you have 10-7 happen. But Biden's polling starts to go down around September-ish. I'm the data girl. Starts going
mhm.
around September. People were already saying that Biden was old before he even jumped in the race. And maybe that should have been taken into I made a post about that yesterday. People got mad at me, but maybe that should have been taken into consideration that people were not wanting an old president. But that was Biden's decision to make whether he wanted to run. If people felt like he wasn't the right person, guess what? Someone could have jumped in the race to try to challenge him. No one jumped in the race except for Marianne Williamson, and that was in March of 2023. RFK jumped in the race in July of 2023,
Dean
and
Phillips.
Dean Phillips jumped in October of 2023. So if someone really wanted to challenge, they had ample opportunity. We had a primary. It wasn't the primary that was a 2020 primary because we had an incumbent. So I don't know what people want from Biden. They want people to admit that Biden shouldn't have run. Okay, does that change anything? No.
No,
Nothing changes. Okay, Biden shouldn't have run. I'll say it. Biden shouldn't have run. Does that change what the outcome of this election? No, because we don't have a time machine and we cannot go back to 2023 and tell Biden you probably shouldn't have won because if you do, you're gonna have a really bad debate in June of 2024 and there's gonna be 3 weeks of hell and then you're gonna have to pass the torch to Kamala. Like there's no way that none of us can predict the future and none of us knew that was going to happen.
I wish they could because, maybe they could see that, if they keep focusing on, trying to relitigate an election that has already passed, they're going to find themselves in 2026 not having free and fair elections. And then they'll be saying, maybe we should have been paying attention to what they were doing, taking our rights and things away. It's just bonkers. And this is the problem I have with the mainstream, lame street media, because they really, I feel like, David Hogg is young and like, I think what he's doing is dumb, but I attribute a lot of it just to him being young, you know,
Yeah.
um,
I
and
know.
even though he's a Harvard grad, he's still like, but mainstream media should know better. Like they really are being attacked themselves, and at this
Right.
point, they're enabling him, and it's like. I applaud the ones who have kind of left and got out, like Katie Fang and some others, because they do recognize it and they are trying to bring attention to it. And so Jake Tapper, what he's doing is disgusting,
Beyond.
disgusting. Like it's not that I didn't think about him really, but this to me, like sometimes it's just some of these folks do stuff that I just think is unforgivable, and I think this is kind of really unforgivable. Not because you want to write a book, you want to trash a previous president, but because of where we are in our history right now. Like this is what you're doing.
Right, but D, what's even worse is that he's using his platform on TV, to your point, to sell his book.
Exactly.
Like what? And then you have the people on CNN who are posting about it and like, oh yeah, you should get Jake's book, and there's so many revelatory things in there. What is in this book? You still have not shown me any proof. And then you have Jamie Harrison. I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday. He's
That
fighting with the
was
guy from Axios because apparently in the book it says that Biden didn't recognize Jamie Harrison, and Jamie's like, this never happened. Jake Sullivan is like, this never happened. Apparently, they were supposed to be like they were supposed to reach out to people and ask them if the stories that they were getting from the anonymous sources were true. And these people are like, no, these things never happened. So you expect us to trust your raggedy ass book
but
because you said it, because you got it from some random person?
what
Make
was the most bizarre thing to me is that the dude from Axios is actually saying to Jamie,
right.
read the book so you'll know what happened to you. To you.
Right. That was wild. That was so wild. Like I'm like, Jamie's like, I need to take a break. And I'm like, you know what? You do need to take a damn break because I'm ready to fight these people for you because these people are insane. And the guy is like, he's dying on this hill. He's like, no, it definitely happened. And literally the person that you're saying it happened to is telling you it never happened. How insane are y'all looking right now? The whole thing doesn't make sense, and I just don't understand what people want from Biden. He already said that when he was on The View, he said that he takes responsibility for losing. Okay,
Mhm.
he said that. He gave his reasonings why he thought that Kamala would end up losing, sexism and racism. People didn't like that. It doesn't matter what Biden says anymore. They're gonna find something wrong with it, and that is the most frustrating thing. This is a person who took 4 years of his life and he brought this country back from a pandemic.
The brink.
We had
Like
the best economy in the world, like recovery and economy, when he left.
the envy
And
of the world.
was he perfect? Absolutely not. No one is perfect that is going, but he was damn near close to trying to do as much as he can with the Congress that he was given for those 2 years. We got historic legislation passed. We finally got infrastructure passed. And we are still at a place where people are just ingrates. That's the only thing, the best way I could say it. They're unfreaking grateful for the things that Biden has done. And I am tired of hearing the complaints because honestly, and I wrote about this earlier on Twitter, is while you can blame Biden for not for running and then dropping out, why aren't we talking about his actual campaign staff? Because I have issues with them. I have issues with his campaign staff prior to Kamala even joining. Remember, she took her team ended up being his team. They did not put Biden out there. They are so scared of a mistake of what could happen if Biden said in 2022 Biden was Dark Brandon. Like we lived off that damn Dark Brandon meme. I mean, he was being himself and he was
Yes.
trying to do what he could. But I do, and this is one part of the book that I do agree with because I do believe this is true. I do believe that they did put Biden in a bubble. He was very stressed with everything that was going on with his son. We're trying to get like a ceasefire, and there's all these protests. Like he's trying to do all he can in the beginning of 2024. And so, yeah, they did put him in a bubble so that he could be protected. I can see you could look at Joe Biden and see that he was extremely stressed during the first part of 2024. And rightfully so. There was a lot of shit happening in the world that he had to solve for or help solve for. And it is very grueling to do two things. One, Being a president is extremely hard. But then he also has to run for reelection. So you're talking about doing double duty. And a lot of times what they were doing on, instead of doing like campaign events, they would have like, Biden is doing an economic event, he's doing a press conference here. It's very controlled. And Trump was dominating the media at that time. This is when he
Mm-hmm.
was going through his trial. This is when he is, think about 2020, early 2024. He was going through a trial,
Right.
and that he
He
dominated the
literally
media.
was campaigning from the
Yeah,
courthouse.
from court. Exactly. I mean, this was what the media was talking about. Trump, 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 Trump. Even my husband would say, "Why is MSNBC talking about Trump all damn day?" It's because he was the news. I mean, his cases were the news. What he was doing. This is all his mugshot. This, the, that. I mean, all of this stuff was in the news, and they refused to talk about what Biden was doing or what he was saying. And Biden would literally have to think about it. The time when we saw Biden in early 2024 was when that Robert Hur thing came out, and he had to go and basically curse the media out. Because what did they say? He didn't have he couldn't remember stuff at that when they were doing the investigation on his documents. This
Mm-hmm.
shit that Biden was going through. It's not an excuse, but I do feel like his campaign was, keeping him in a bubble in order to protect him, but people saw that as Biden, they were shielding him from going on TV or going places because of his health. But maybe he needed that because he was freaking stressed out. Like he this is like I don't think people have empathy. They just really lack empathy for what Biden was going through. And I do believe that they did the debate, and they've admitted this, that they did the debate because of the attention that Trump was getting from the media. And so they wanted to have something to be able to bring it back to Biden. Unfortunately, Biden was very sick during that debate. No excuse, he admits it, and he effed up. And the debate itself was bad. I was in Biden headquarters. I don't know if most people know that, but I was in Biden headquarters that night. And when I tell you how those people freaked out, because most of them were young, like 20 something, they freaked. I was having to like I was like, guys, like, calm down. We got this. Like, we're good. Like, the media is going to take over this narrative, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. And the media most definitely took over the narrative, and they said, "Oh, Biden's old. This, that, and the third." So this is what happens when the media gets a hold of the situation, and then it snowballs. Because even if you watch that debate, even after the debate, there were people in the focus groups that were like, yeah, no, Biden was fine. He did have some missteps. I would never not admit that he did have some really bad moments where he was like blank and he looked like he was staring away and he couldn't get the words out. But people after that debate didn't necessarily feel like it was. There were people that were freaked out for sure, but there was a chance to recover. But the media did not allow for that. And then you had 3 weeks of hell of people from in Congress saying that he needs to drop out. Of course, his polling went from here and dropped all the way down in swing states. What the hell do you think is going to happen if the media
Exactly.
is hammering you nonstop?
And they intended it was, to me, kind of a very coordinated attack, meant to, like, just knock him out and take him out, and it eventually it did, and that was a very sad thing to see. But again, as you said, all of these things are true, and I don't think that people have empathy or are able to put those things into context because the news cycle is moving so fast, and that people and the news folks don't do a good job of providing context or
Definitely.
connecting the dots. So if you're not doing that for yourself, sometimes it's hard, to connect these things. But you and I, think in a way that, like, we're like, what happened, what caused this, and what then, and how does that connect to this? But everybody doesn't do that, and I feel like in that way, when the media gets onto these sensational stories that they won't let go of.
Yeah.
it informs, unfortunately, a lot of people who are not absorbed into, politics and the news as we are. And so I feel like they painted this horrible negative narrative, and it was hard for him to recover from that, in addition to, like I said, all the things that he had come back from. But I've flown overseas a few times, and that's hard. Like, the man had just, first of all, what he was doing there was very hard diplomatic work. It's not like when um you know the current guy is over there just grifting and seeing what he can get and how much money. Like, he's literally a statesman, and he was doing diplomatic work. He was being a president. Then he comes back, as you say, he goes to a fundraiser. I understand he had COVID or cold or something prior to the debate, which they didn't find out until afterwards. So all of these things make sense. He's human. He's not, he's president. He's not Superman. But they really just kind of hone in on all of his failures, all of his weaknesses, so
Yeah.
his shortcoming. Because really and truly, when you look back at it, if you want to look back, he really was one of the most consequential presidents that we've had in modern time. The things that he got done, and as you say, the things that he got done with all the opposition that he had in doing these things. I think he was genius. And sometimes, like, they say, no, you can't do it this way, and he'd come back and he'd find another way. And that, to me, was really impressive. And I guess maybe because I'm older, yes, I could see that his walk wasn't as spry as it used to be. Mine isn't either. And like, he had, earlier injuries when he was younger, and when you get older, those things, those joints and stuff, start to stiffen up, and it is a little more difficult. But I feel like he was a good president. He did a good job, and I hate that people, the media doesn't give him the credit for that. I don't know if they ever will,
I
but
don't.
I continue to try to do that. And I also feel like it's them also trying to mess up the Democratic election, in 2026, just creating all this turmoil. Like, I don't disagree with young people. Like, we need them there. But that doesn't mean to toss out the older people, the people who have experience, who can teach them. Like, young doesn't mean best, or,
Right.
it's just young. And old doesn't always mean wise either. Like, there's nuance. So I think it is important for the Dems to build their bench, but the way that the people who think it should be done are trying to go about it, I think, is messed up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my thing is, the more you press, I have a grandmother, I have parents. The more you press old people, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but older people are very stubborn in their ways. I'm stubborn in my way. Like, my daughter's not gonna move me off of my position. Like, that's not gonna happen. But if the more that you push people and say you need to retire, they're going to resist. If you actually want to move people and have a productive conversation, you should be polite and you should be respectful and talk to them and explain to them why it would be in their best interest and your best interest why they should leave their post. I mean, David Hogg is on Bill Maher saying, that Jim Clyburn needs to get over himself because he said that if he was to leave Congress, his life would be over. I don't think this is where the empathy things comes in for me, because Jim Clyburn, one, he has spent his whole life fighting for his district and for the people, right?
Hmm.
His wife is deceased, and Congress is his life. That is where he's been for the last 30 something years. And you saying to get over yourself, while it sounds cute and quippy for Bill Maher, we respect our elders. And people are like, well, why do we need to respect who raised you? Like, who raised you? You
Exactly.
respect her. David Hogg could have said that way more eloquently. He could have said, you know what, I respect Jim Clyburn and the fact that, he feels like his life would be over if he leaves Congress, but there has to be a path for us young people to be able to acquire some of these seats at some point. And there's a way to talk about this that is productive on both sides. But
Mm-hmm.
I just don't feel like a lot of these people have any kind of, come here, Dallas. These people have any kind of respect for for people that are older. They just really don't, and it's sad.
Right. And how about, like you said, a way to go about it? Like this man, he was a member of SNCC. He, as you said, he's been fighting. He's been an activist and an advocate his entire life for people. So why not approach this man with like, I admire the work that you've done. I think that he's okay. He recognizes he's probably getting old too. And like, I
But
want to follow in your footsteps, or I want to
tutor me,
learn
show
how you,
me something.
yes, mentor me. Like old people love doing that. Like, and
Exactly. Like there's a way to approach it. I just feel like these younger people don't understand succession, and they don't understand how to go about having conversations, and it's frustrating to hear it. I'm in the middle of all of these age groups, and I'm so annoyed with the way that people are talking, especially on social media and in cable media, about older people. I don't think that it's fair to say, well, you got to go, because guess what? At some point they will go, and trust me, I live in a district where my congressman, he is 85 years old. When he decides to retire, I'm going to cry, because we're going to have the most horrible primary ever in life, because there's going to be like at least 10 people trying to run in this for that seat, and it's gonna be horrible. So I'm not looking forward to that. I'm like Cindy Horner, you can die in that seat, because I do not want to be bothered with this primary. Like that is where I'm at with this, because it's going to be bad. I mean, he's held the seat for 30 years. He's a great congressman. His age is not the determining factor to me on whether he leaves or goes. Of course, I want him to retire and live his best life, but he just got married. He's happy. He is just fine the way he is. And I think people also don't recognize that the House and the Senate are a little bit different, right? The Senate is a 6-year term, whereas so if you're in that seat and there's complications with governors and things like that, so if you leave the seat, the governor has to appoint someone in some states. There has to be special elections. So if you're 80 years old, like a Bernie Sanders, and you're running to be the senator for till you're 86 years old, well, actually Bernie was 83. He's 83 years old. He just won re-election. He will be in that seat until he's 89 years old. Why was no one screaming to Bernie, why are you running? Why is no one screaming to Ed Markey that he is 80 years old, and if he wins re-election, he'll be there till 86? They were mad at Dianne Feinstein for doing that. But apparently this doesn't apply to their progressive heroes that are out there. It only applies to the people that they don't like or they're tired of. So it's kind of like, to me, it's not consistent. There's a lot of hypocrisy behind it. And if you're like, you know what, I don't want. Some people are like, they want term limits. Okay, well, if you want term limits, then fine. If you want an age limit, maybe people shouldn't serve in the Senate for more than 3 terms. That is literally what, 18 years? That is a long time. But a House person, they have to run for reelection every 2 years, no matter what. Everybody's up every 2 years. So realistically, they could retire, and Nancy Pelosi probably will retire either this time or the next time. Steny Hoyer may retire. You have to build your bench, and there has to be people that are in line to be able to be ready to take over these seats. I am pretty sure that Jim Clyburn, when he retires, it's probably going to be Bakari, Jamie, and his daughter that are likely to run for his seats. But you have to prepare people to run for those seats. If his daughter's going to run, she has to be prepared. If Jamie makes sense, that he used to work for Jim Clyburn, if he's going to run for that seat, then cool. Let him be prepared. But that is not up to some twerp who's in wherever, New York, let's go New York or California, to decide what someone should do. Because at the end of the day, you can put up anyone against someone, but unless those people know that person in that district, they're not going to win. End of story.
Exactly. And people were talking, I heard Jasmine Crockett, people talking about her running for Senate, and she talked about how difficult it is. Like, she has her position there now, but to win, the Senate and the state of Texas, the size that it is, and all like that's a hard win, and so sometimes you have to be realistic, and you also, some of these people making decisions about people, in states that they don't live in and they don't know, I think it's problematic as well, and
Yeah,
she
no, for
did.
sure. I mean, even in my state, I mean, to get Angela also Brooks elected was hell. That was a lot. She was going against David Trone. That was a very frustrating primary because he funded himself $60 million to her like $3 million or whatever she had, and we had to bust our asses for her to win that primary, and she did. That was actually a year ago, 2 days ago, right? And we're very proud of her. She was amazing this week against RFK, but we really worked hard, and she really worked hard to win that race. Then we also had to fight against Larry Hogan to win, right? And this is a blue state. So people are not realistic on what it takes to win. And people are like, "Oh, well, AOC, she needs to go beat Schumer." Yeah, that's really nice to say, but people don't understand the makeup of New York. It's easy to win in New York City if you're a Democrat, but you actually have to win the entire state, and that would require you to campaign upstate. These people don't want to hear about these progressive things up there. They're mostly, I mean, they just
It's
don't. They're not.
rural, like there are rural
It's
areas
rural.
in
It's
every
red.
state.
And New York is not as progressive as people think on the Long Island or in upstate New York. New York City is not New York, and people don't
Right.
recognize that New Jersey is going to struggle with their election for governor. They're gonna have a primary. I'm pretty sure that Mickey probably will end up winning that, but I just saw a poll this morning that said Trump is actually polling better than the governor right now. So this is a struggle. This is going to be a struggle in New Jersey. And I'm talking to people in New Jersey. These folks are not prepared for this election. So we have a potential of losing that governorship. We also have I'm telling you, in blue states, people assume that it is all blue. But even in my state, Maryland, you have central Maryland that is blue. The western part, the eastern part is red, red, red.
And that's the case really all over the country, because even in California, I think a lot of people in general think of it as blue, but there are some very red areas in California. In every state, like, I mean, they've had Republican governors there, Schwarzenegger and Reagan, some others. So, and I have friends that live there, and they, have let me know that, like, there are areas and pockets that are very red and very, and even the places that are blue, they are blue until they are not, because the Republicans are trying to move into all of these areas, because of course they want power, they want to take over, everything. They want to rule at the federal level and all the state levels, and they have managed to capture, kind of a trifecta in about three different in about 23 different states now, that where they hold these trifectas, and they don't mind, just kind of getting in there and working from the floor up, like starting with the city councils and the school boards, and keep moving and moving and moving. And so I um I know we have a lot of work ahead of us, and it is really, really important that we, focus on that work. And I don't know how we do that, how we continue to do that when we have these entities out here basically working against us. I mean, except I just keep doing what I do, trying to push the information out there, and combat some of the crazy narratives that they are trying to float. But they are not making the fight easy for us. But fight we must, because this um, you know midterm election that's coming up is critical. Because I quite frankly, I'm concerned whether or not it will be a fair and free election. And so all of this crazy stuff that they're doing, is to me like putting the cart before the horse, so to speak, with some of
And
this stuff.
and I think too, Carrie's here. She works. She lives in Nebraska, and of course, John Ewing won this week. That was awesome. Like people were excited
Yes,
about that. But here's the thing: the Democrats have had a very low rating. I wrote a Substack on this, 27% at one point. The people keep quoting that damn poll, and it makes me freaking crazy every single time because I'm like, it does not give context to what does that really
it
happen
was one moment in
in
time.
time, and we are 2 months from that moment, and we've had elections since then. We have had the Nebraska again race that was this week that we Democrats won, which was awesome. They unseated the Republican in that mayoral race. We are winning special elections. We are winning in Pennsylvania. We are winning in Wisconsin. These are places that we did not win in 2024. So there is hope. We talked about this the last time, when we ended the last time that we spoke, have faith and to talk about, how do we move forward. The easiest way to get Democrats to feel good about Democrats is to freaking win. Like that's the easiest way.
Yes.
Because people were dejected, and I made a post this week on Substack about pessimism. So 7 in 10 Democrats are pessimistic about the future of this party. I understand that. I When you lose, it is, and then to lose with a very joyful candidate who sparked joy in all of us, it is very stressful. So, and then you have 100 days of hell with Trump, right? So you have there was it was like it was never ending for 5 months. You went from boom, 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 a lot of stuff shut down, possible shutdowns. I mean, there was a lot happening.
Hmm.
So winning is the cure for all of this, but there's also other things we have to do. And I laid that out in the Substack about what can we do and what can Democrats do to win. You have to there is work that has to be done. Stop taking the base for granted. Number 1, get out to these blue cities, get out to these blue states and go talk to people. Town halls are so important. People have a lot of stuff on their mind that they're pissed about. Go talk to them. Let them vent. Go hear what they have to say, because you cannot win and know how to serve the people unless you get out there and talk to them. That social media is just social media. You have to actually talk to voters. And that's what they need to do. They need to build a system, what we're doing here, build a system to be able to have better communication with voters.
Hmm.
What is happening in the cable news media, we cannot control that. That is controlled by corporate executives. But we can control the conversations that we have. We can control what we post on our social media and inform people of what is truly going on. So there's things that we can do. I made a whole list of things that we could
I
possibly.
love that article, and it was a great great analysis. And I always tell people, in the weekly live chat that I had, good trouble chat that I've been having now for 4 years. I try to impress upon people to get involved locally. That's really where it's at, because ultimately that's what's affecting you most immediately, and it is really where you can have the most immediate impact. And so, for me here in Tennessee, I belong to a PAC. I have formed, an organization here, Blue Tennessee, which is part of Every State Blue. And it is to get Democrats in the state house, because our state house has now had a Republican trifecta for a decade and a half. And the only way that we're going to change it is getting Democrats elected and voting. And we had more people running. They didn't win. And sometimes it's not about that immediate win, it's about chipping away and slowly over time. Some of this work is not going to happen in one cycle or two cycle. It's the progression of the work. And as you said, meeting people where they are. And when you have people, running in places where maybe candidates haven't gone to talk to them before, but now candidates are, and you're waking the constituents up, and they are being able to connect with people who could possibly be their representatives or show them what a representative who represents their values could look like and be. It gives them hope. But it's kind of hard for people, who are in a state like mine that's so heavily gerrymandered, where a lot of times people just don't run because they don't feel like they can win. And it literally leaves a lot of Democratic voters with no choice, no one to vote for. No, and
Yeah, no one
that
should.
shouldn't be.
Yeah, we should definitely be running people in places that there should be no seat that goes unchallenged. That's the way I look at it, right?
Right.
I think that's something that the DNC is definitely like trying to emphasize. But to your point, all politics is local. People care about what's happening in their communities. They care of they we need to build back community. Again, we talked about this before. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're an independent. I care if you're going to vote. That's what I care about. So if you're an independent and you want and a Democrat comes to your city or your state and you want to go see them, great. We have to start building community with people so that they can feel like this party actually cares about them. What they're seeing is just like it's just chaos. It just feels like what they're seeing is just we have people complaining about Biden. We have David Hogg doing whatever the hell he's doing. We
Talking
have
about pushing
you
all
know
the old people out.
yeah, you have all these men that are just like Biden should have never run. Beto last night. I'm like Beto, if you don't sit your tail down somewhere, you have lost so many races. You have spent $175 million lost on you running 3 times in a row. Like, bro, sit down and shut up. Like, I
Hmm.
am done. And then you have like Chris Murphy, who I actually like Chris Murphy, but I just feel like he sometimes steps out of bounds, and he was like basically saying that Biden is not well or whatever. I'm like, dude, if you don't shut up, like, why are you opening your mouth at this point? I don't understand the 2028 like kind of like class of people who want to run, and I don't know if it's like a symptom of just being white men and just can't shut their damn mouth, but something is not right with them constantly just badgering Joe Biden. I think they believe in their heart of hearts that if they are the opposite of Biden, that will draw people closer to them. This is what I'm saying about understanding the base of the party.
Hmm.
We are, even though we may be mad about whatever, we are still going to protect and we're still going to defend Biden. I could think, my opinion about what happened in 2024 changes daily. I think about I have so many data in my head of what happened, but realistically what happened is we just got freaking outvoted. They showed up and we didn't. I saw somebody say in blues in New York that Trump gained. No, Trump didn't really gain. He gained some. But what happened was people sat their asses at home. They didn't show up. Why did they show up? Well, because a lot of people that live in blue states, they're like, we're gonna win anyway. So why do I need to show up? Guess
That,
what? That's not that's a great mentality for you, but it's not a great mentality for the vote counts because it looks like Kamala did terrible in some of these places. But the bottom line is you should have shown up because it is your civic duty to vote. It is not what were you thinking? And that's part of the problem. Electoral college, that's a whole another story that we can have a conversation about.
yes, we'll do that one on another on
But it's
an
just like the whole concept of this drives me crazy because people are like, "Oh my God, it was rigged." Da 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 da. No, we got outvoted. I looked at the data. We got outvoted, and I did that one analysis about the fact that people did sit home. I mean, 90 million people stayed home in 2024. 3 million Black voters stayed home in 2024. It was probably a little bit 3 point something two with like 1.2 million, I think, was the difference between Latinos. Like, but a lot of them did vote for Trump. That was where you saw like the actual change. More white people voted for Kamala Harris than they did Joe Biden. Like, there's things that people don't want to have the conversation about. Yes, there's sexism. Yes, there's racism. But at the end of the day, it's about math, and the math was the math. And Biden, Trump got more votes than Kamala in certain states. And in certain states, she outperformed, like Georgia and in Wisconsin, she and North Carolina, she outperformed Biden. But that side showed up more. It's crazy. So it's frustrating to hear these people like Biden should have dropped out, Biden should have this, Biden. I don't care anymore. I don't
It's
care about what Biden should have done. That is not going to change the fact that Trump won and we are in hell.
right.
Period.
We are in fascism right now. So where do we go from here, folks? And that's, like that's what I'm focused on, like how we become a strong enough opposition to keep fascism from taking
Hey,
total control and roots in this country, because the longer they're there, the more that it takes hold, and we just can't allow it, because it is going to be so hard for us to win back, our democracy and our freedoms. Like right now in the Supreme Court, they are reviewing birthright citizenship. They are also looking at whether or not he had the right to fire. I think this is a lower court. Some folks from the label review board members and stuff. So, like, there are a lot of things that are going on that have really far reaching implications for a lot of people for a long time. And that's where I would love for us to focus. And also to, like the fact that they can have all of this energy and stuff around Biden, an election that's over and done, when we have the grifter in chief going around, and all of his cronies and all the people in Congress, making stock trades and things like this. I think I saw a recent post about Nancy Mace being another one that, uh, got, some early information to be able to make stock decisions. Like there's just a lot, and forget the fact that these people are talking about doing away, ignoring due process and doing away with like basic rights that have been here since the foundation of this country. It just can't stand, and people need to wake up.
I'm
I'm
here.
gonna keep screaming from the rafters.
Yes, we are. We are good. We are going to continue to do the work. I mean, that's what we always do. Like I said, all politics is local. You and I both are active on our state and local levels, and I think that's where we should focus. We have nationalized way too many elections, and we need to get back to the basics is what I call it. Focus on
Exactly.
your home area, your state, and build from there. Stop worrying about, like, I mean I'm guilty of it too. I'll be, but I'm trying my best. Like there's a race on Tuesday, so just before we end, there's a race on Tuesday that people should pay attention to. That's the Pittsburgh mayor race. So the person who's in the seat right now is Ed Gainey. He is a progressive, and he is running against this guy named, I think his name is his last name is Connor. I forgot his first name, but he is a more moderate candidate, and they've been going back and forth on this. So it'll be interesting to see if Ed Gainey will be reelected, and that's kind of like a bellwether for progressives because they want to primary all these people. But if you can't keep your incumbents, then how the hell are you going to win open seats or challenge someone who is a moderate? So it'll be interesting to see if Ed Gainey, who I do like, is going to keep his seat on Tuesday.
All right. Well, I think that's kind of a good note for us to end on, and something we can have to, talk about and follow up on for our next Friday live. And I want to thank all of the great folks who have come and supported us and engaged with us. It really means a lot. And Tiff and I will be back and do this again, 2 weeks from now. And so we're just going to keep, you know, planting our stakes in the ground, continuing to do the work. She does what she does. I do, what I do. And we just want to thank you guys for supporting us and encourage you to do what you can where you are. Like everybody can do something. And it's really important that we all do something now besides complain, I think.
Yeah, complain. You can't change the past. That's for damn sure.
Exactly. So thanks, folks.
Bye.
We'll see you next time. Bye bye.